social prosperity partners, and we've invited him today to share insights on what it takes to elevate communities from conflict to conversation. So please join me in welcoming Matt Lehrman.
I've heard the laughter. Must disagreement be disagreeable? Do you have an opinion on it? You do? I'm looking for it. Do you have an opinion? I'm showing. You do? Does it have to be disagreeable? Yes or no? It could be a really short presentation today. Hey, before we get into the presentation, I have to tell you, I was moved, really moved by the in memoriam, Ken, and you're right, it's hard to transition from that. I'm having a little trouble transitioning, and I wonder if you would help me transition for it as well. You know, look around this room. I don't know about you. This is the largest number of people that I have been in a room with for a year and a half. Anyone else have that same kind of experience yourself? I mean, it's incredible that we are here together. And I think we should take 30 seconds. I think in that 30 seconds, you should stand up, you should do a complete, circle, you should applaud each other, and most importantly, you should point at each other. You should make eye contact with people, that one of those kinds of things, and you should go, good to see you. Even if it's someone way across the room and you're just mouthing, it's okay. Even if you don't know them, you do it's good to see you, because we need to celebrate. We really need to make that transition and say, it is good to see you. Would you do that for me, please? Stand up, give each other a round of applause. It's good to see you. Make some eye contact. My goal today is not to add to that stress. This is as close as we are going to come to talking about anything that is a cause of stress. I am not going to talk about partisan politics. I'm not going to talk about any candidates or office holders or any political office. I am not going to talk about any political issue. Yeah, we're going to talk about getting from conflict to conversation. We know there's a lot of sensitive things that we could touch on. I'm going to get that close and absolutely no further, okay? In fact, we're going to, yeah, I heard good. Exactly. I want to honor the year and a half of effort that you've put into whatever it is you're doing. It's been a year and a half of perseverance and resilience and courage. It's as if all of our puzzle pieces were thrown up in the air. And we spent a lot of time, haven't we, trying to put those puzzle pieces back to the way they were before the pandemic started. And then beyond there, we've done a lot of effort to reconfigure those puzzle pieces, to figure new ways of putting them together, to make us smarter and more effective and make our communities healthier and more vibrant going forward. So it's in that spirit that I come to you today and I ask you, wherever that little switch is in your brain, the open mind switch, switch it up now. Switch it into the open and on position, if you would, for me. Just play with me for a few minutes. Let me talk about ways that we can reconfigure the ways that we approach disagreement and public engagement. And look, I promise, if you don't like what I have to say, at the end of this presentation, I give you complete permission to return to your communities and keep doing what you're doing. Return to your prior level of misery. You don't have to do any of the things that I'm going to suggest for you today. But if you will just play with me for a few minutes and be open-minded, and let's just see, could we talk about some other ways that we might go about problem solving in our community. You willing to do that? That did not sound wholehearted at all. Are you willing to do that? Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. So, I'm going to begin with a simple sentence. I want to see if you agree with me that where people work together courageously, their potential is unlimited. Can you generally buy that concept? Yes. Again, not terribly wholehearted. I'm looking for wholehearted here. Do you believe that where people work together courageously, their potential is unlimited? Thank you. There's my good friend over there. Appreciate you. Thank you. So look, we can talk about courage in a lot of different ways. There is the courage of a soldier and of a first responder, the courage to rush in to harm's way to do your duty and to have that kind of bravery. I'm not talking about that kind of courage today. There is also the kind of courage where you're willing to fall on your sword for a principle, where you're willing to be the last defender of what you think is right. I'm not talking about that kind of courage today either. I am talking about the courage to be open-minded. The courage to have the patience to listen to someone with whom you might disagree, even profoundly. And having listened to them, to be willing to think about your own position and be willing to engage with them in a conversation. That's what I keep calling a courageous conversation. So when I ask you to open your mind, I'm asking you to be open to vulnerability and inquisitiveness. And just, can you see what the world looks like through someone else's eyes? That's what I'm going to ask you to do today. That's what I'm going to ask that we inject into the public dialogue that goes on in our communities. So in our communities, we use a lot of different language to talk about this. And I'm curious in your community what you use. I've heard it referred to as citizen involvement and public dialogue and civic participation, but sometimes you call it community engagement, resident outreach, or just civil society. Was that language, so were anyone having different language for what we're talking about here, for how you have public dialogue in your community? If you could just yell it at me, I'd love to hear it.
Arguments.
Arguments. Yeah, we have a lot of arguments, that's true. Anyone else want to add other vocabulary to that? Good, so we got most of it here, plus arguments. So I'm simply here today, I'm going to offer 6 tips, 6 quick tips for better public dialogue. And like I said, my goal is to be high level in this presentation, but practical enough that you can take something home with you and you can apply it right away. Now, my presentation is going to be pretty high level. Tomorrow morning at what, Carol? 9 o'clock tomorrow is the first panel sessions in the morning. I'm going to invite you back for a 1-hour conversation. No PowerPoint, no presentations, nothing other than a real conversation. And I'm going to be joined by Mayor McTizick from Bolivar, and Mayor Brown from Gallatin, and City Manager Kim Foster from Paris, and David Smoke from Farragut. I haven't met any of these people yet. Are you all here? Any of you here right now? Thank you. There's David. And thank you, Mayor. And thank you very much, Kim. I'll see you over there. And Mayor McTizick. Okay. I'm looking forward to having them join me because their job tomorrow, and I told them there was no preparation needed, was that we were going to take your questions. We're going to take your questions about, well, how do we take what Matt told us last night, and how do we actually make that work in a practical way? And they are my promise that there's no BS, there's nothing impractical about what I'm talking about. We are just going to talk about the way you can actually do this in your community. So allow me to be a little idealistic, a little high-minded here, and know that tomorrow morning you are invited and we're going to have a real practical conversation about this. Now, I spend most of my time not as a speaker, but as a facilitator. I bring people together so they can have conversation. So, true to form, I want to have a little bit of a conversation with all of you. And I know that President Penn told you to put your phones away. I am now going to ask you to take your phones out. Take your phones out. I'm going to ask you to join me through text message, and we're going to see how you all feel about certain questions. And the way you join me, because your answers are going to appear on the screen, is that you are going to text the word public, P-U-B-L-I-C, to the number 22333. text the word public to the number 22333. While you're doing that, let me give you the quick disclaimer. I subscribe to an online service called Poll Everywhere. The answers that you provide are anonymous-ish. Anonymous-ish means as they appear on the screen, no one can tell who wrote it. If, however, someone says something threatening, harassing, or otherwise inappropriate, I do have the ability to go back and see what phone number that came from. So just so you know, I can track. That's anonymous-ish. There is no cost to participating in any of this unless you pay for text messages on your cell phone plan, in which case, respectfully, I suggest get a better plan. Third and finally, there is no marketing capture from this. There is no further communication that will happen. You're not getting messages from me or from them or anyone else as a result of your participation. When we're done, that's it, it's over. So, if you have texted the word public to the number 22333, you should have gotten a bounce back message that says, you've joined that Lehrman session. Give me a thumbs up if you're with me and we're good. Look at all these people who participated. Thank you so much. Okay. So if you've done that, if you hit public to the number 22333, you are now ready. All I'm going to ask you to do is, at the appropriate time, you're just going to text message in the answer to this question. And it's a one-word answer that I'd like you to submit to this. Just one word, if you would, please. And here's the question. I want to know your answer to this question. In my community, civic engagement most often... Oops, hang on. See, look at that. Someone's already doing it. Hang on a second here. We're going to clear that. Hang on. Now, those should go away in just a second. So I'd like you to answer the question. In my community, civic engagement most often leaves people feeling what? In my community, civic engagement most often leaves people feeling fill in the blank. And what you're going to see is the words are going to start coming in. And like any good word cloud, if more than one person says the same word, that word is going to grow in size. And look, already, 85 of you, 87 of you have responded. And what is the number one word that's showing up? Frustrated. And behind that, confused. But frustrated is coming out. And you know what? We're at 116. I got plenty more room here. Why don't you go ahead and put a second word in? You can vote for another word that's already up here. You can add vocabulary to it. I think the league would be very interested to know what you think is the answer to the question, in my community, civic engagement most often leaves people feeling what? I want you to look at the variety of words that are coming in here. And the screen resets every time a new word is received, but keep them coming in. Frustrated is the number one word. Involved is interesting to see there. Confused, angry, included, heard, unheard, hopeful, disappointed, appreciated, delayed, aggravating, attacked, powerless, skeptical, voiceless. Voiceless. Wow, that's a powerful word. In my community, civic engagement most often leaves people feeling voiceless. I hear the mumbling over there. What's the word that you're looking at? What is it? That's hilarious. Just out of curiosity, when you all say Miami football, are we talking Miami, Florida? Yeah? All right. Look at that. Anyone surprised by the language that you see here? Anyone surprised that frustrated is showing up as the number one word that describes how civic engagement is leaving people feeling? Not surprised? I've seen some heads shaking. I'm going to move us forward because these words speak for themselves. It's great to see words like involved and heard. I'm happy to see that. It's the negative words that worry me a lot, and I think they should worry you. It's why we're having this conversation. So with 257 responses, I'm going to move us forward a little bit. Just got to impress upon you. In my community, civic engagement most often leaves people feeling And the top words here are frustrated, confused, angry, and perhaps involved. Okay. So I want to talk about how we move beyond this. Not how do we move beyond this, how do we move our public, our residents, our citizens, how do we move them to a better way of being? Well, let's talk about the purpose of local government. My belief is that the purpose of local government is to enable individuals to join together in recognizing and solving community problems. And this sentence, which I intended to be a basic, vanilla, easily accepted sentence that shouldn't trigger anyone, turns out to be a massive trigger. And you know why? Because a lot of people look at this and they feel the tension, because this sentence says we somehow have to balance the rights of individuals with the needs of community. And who gets to make that decision? The rights of individuals are sacred. The needs of the community brings us, away from rugged individualism and self-reliance and all the things that our country was founded on. And I would like to respectfully suggest that this is a false tension. That the sentence here, that the purpose of local government is to enable individuals to join together in recognizing and solving community problems, is supposed to give you a different mission. It's supposed to give you the mission that the most important words here are joined together. That our responsibility as community leaders, whether you are elected or appointed or a staff position, that our job is to enable people to join together. That the mechanics of how we help people join together is the most important measure of our success. And so the tips that I'm going to offer you are all about the mechanics of how we join people together. I'm going to do the first of the 6 right now. I call this one, you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you had a statement where I don't know why it has to be problems. Why can't it be opportunities? Some community opportunities. Because it's really an opportunity to be able to join together and do that. Not just problems. We get to do other stuff too, besides just deal with problems.
Thank you. I don't know if you can all hear this. I want to make sure it's clear. Your name is? Blake? Blake says that I should rework my sentence here. Instead of talking about solving community problems, I should be solving community opportunities. And I think that's a really interesting point. And in fact, I hope you'll come tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and we can talk about that, because I'm just going to put that back to the 4 community leaders who are going to join me, and I'm going to ask them the practical difference between solving problems and addressing opportunities, and which has the sense of imperative built into it. It's a great question that you asked. Now, I want to get into the 6 tips. And the first one is about declaring community values. And this is so important. And let me ask, I know we have a lot of community leaders here, and this happens a lot. How many of you community leaders are also members of Rotary, the Global Service Org? Raise your hand nice and high so I can see you. We have a fair number of Rotarians here, and I love the idea of Rotary. And so, you know what, can I pick on a Rotarian for a minute? Is there a Rotarian who happens to know the 4-way test? There's a Rotarian over there. Sir, can I ask you to stand up? Can you speak in a really loud voice?
Is it the truth?
Well, hang on, before you do it, just tell me, can you speak in a really loud voice? Okay. Can you hear him over here? Say something, say your name really loud.
John Etheridge.
Can you hear John Etheridge over there? Good. Mr. Etheridge, I would like to ask you to recite the 4-way test. Just look at me, okay? And recite the 4-way test. You ready? Go.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Please give Mr. Etheridge a round of applause. What I love about the Rotary the 4-way test is that it's a statement of values. It's a statement of values that says wherever we go in the world, our community is grounded in this, that we hold ourselves accountable. Mr. Etheridge, am I right? We hold ourselves accountable to this standard of behavior. Is that a fair statement? I love the model of this. I'm not suggesting that you have to use exactly this in your city or town, but I am interested in what is the values that your council, your your community would say is how we operate our government. I'm going to offer you 6. Think of it as a buffet. The 6 that I'm going to offer are, in simple words, togetherness, fairness, peacefulness, security, betterment, sustainability. Now, I noticed a number of you taking pictures of this. I should have told you right up front. At the very end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a way that you can get all of my slides. Plus, you can have a write-up of everything I'm going to talk about. All the 6 points, plus I'll give you 4 more. I'll give you 10 in total, so you'll have a whole bunch. I know you're, thank you. And so I'll give you all that, and you will all have it, because I'll do it through text message. You'll all have it within 30 seconds of the end of my presentation, because it's already set up for you to subscribe and to get it by email. It's all quick. So you're welcome to take pictures, but you don't have to stress that. Okay, so where do these 6 come from? I'm going to tell you again. I promise no partisan politics in here, so I'm going to tell you where I got this from, but let me emphasize, this is a statement of principles, not politics. Because I take these 6, this initial menu item, I take it directly from the U.S. Constitution. Because the preamble to the U.S. Constitution says, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish. Sir, I saw you mouthing along with me here. I don't use the words. Did I hit it right? Thank you very much. So this is my point to you. Again, I'm not saying that you have to use these exact words. But that value statement that we can draw right off of the U.S. Constitution says a lot about how we might choose to hold ourselves accountable to values in our own community. Now, these words are one way to look at it. I'm going to offer you another way to look at it. Because some people are more visual oriented, not everyone is a word person. This is a painting from Norman Rockwell, painted 78 years ago. It's called Freedom of Speech. You know this painting? Does it look familiar? So it was one of a series of paintings he did on the 4 freedoms. And look at this one. This is if you could read the agenda that the man in the front is holding, it's folded in the pocket of our hero there. It's a town annual report. It's an annual meeting. And look at our protagonist. He is literally blue collar, when everyone else is wearing shirt and tie. He is not as old as some of the other people who were there. He's come in from his work day, but he came to the town meeting and stood up because he has something to say. And his hands are on the pew or the bench in front of him because, well, he's steadying himself. I mean, it's an act of courage for him to stand up and say what he's doing. His back is straight. He is looking up in respect to whoever is the town council that he's speaking to. And look at the people around him. What are they doing? They're paying attention to him. As the artist is saying, there is no freedom of speech without a concurrent feeling of respect, a willingness to listen. And I look at this picture and I think, boy, there's a lot about community value that we can distill from there. Now, there are some things missing from this picture too, right? If Norman Rockwell was trying to paint this painting today, would he do it like this? No, not quite. This obviously does not have the diversity of population, the breadth of population that we are responsible to serve. And so with a little magic PowerPoint, I will just make a gesture in that direction to say, we understand that the spirit of this should be inclusive, but it should allow someone with an idea and a perspective to stand up and be willing to say it and have other people listen to it with respect. I'm going to move us on now to number 2. A second tip that you can take. If the first tip was to declare your community values, why, the second one is, I want you to recognize in your community what hurts. Because in the last year and a half, there's been a lot of hurt. Now, if you ever took a psychology course or read a psychology book, you might have been exposed to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It says that as individuals, We have to, before we can be, in the parlance, self-actualized, it just means before we can be who we really want to be, before who we are meant to be, before we can do all the things that we have the gifts to do, we have to have our psychological needs taken care of and our basic needs taken care of as well. Well, the same is true in your communities. The same is true for your communities. You see, in order to be a vibrant community, there has to be a foundation of health and safety. That's basic needs. And then built on top of that, we have to take care of the psychological needs of inclusion and trust that goes along with it. We are not a vibrant community until those are taken care of. And not just because of the pandemic, but because of a lot of reasons over the last year and a half, it's become incredibly, unmistakably vivid that we have a lot of work to do to build our foundation. That we cannot rest on the laurels that say, oh yeah, everything is going good, everyone's at the same place, and of course, we can be a vibrant community, people should just go off and do themselves. The foundation has some weaknesses in it. And this is a year, because we had to rearrange our puzzle pieces, we get to go back and re-firm up the foundation upon which we built our communities. And so I'm going to ask you once again to take out your cell phone, and I'm going to ask you to share something about what's going on in your community. And this is not a one-word answer. You can put as many words into your sentence. You can write a paragraph if you have the time to do it. But right now I'm going to ask you to answer the question by texting it in, and it'll all string together as separate sentences. What specific issues deserve better public engagement in your community right now? What specific issues deserve better public engagement in your community right now? And take a look as they all start coming in. I'm seeing code enforcement, security, property rights, land use, growth management, the environment, safety. Boy, they're coming fast and furious. Vaccination, getting vaccinated, housing, affordable housing, the environment, health, division. Look at all these issues coming in. Keep going. You can do more than one if you want. If you've got multiple issues that deserve better public engagement, please go ahead and insert them now. Let's make up the full list here. And I promise you, it won't come back to you in the email that will come to you today, but I will follow up and I will send you this list so that you have it. And I'll share with the league so they have it as well. Because this is an incredible inventory of all the places where you know you need to make an investment in the foundation of your own communities. So improving quality of life, recreation, growth, environment, annexation, sewer, infrastructure improvement, growth, elder care opportunities. Keep them coming in. Even when the board starts filling up, it will still continue to grow below. And so I can see we're well over 200 responses here, and you can keep them coming in for another 10 or 15 seconds. I will capture them all and gladly share them all with you. Look at all the issues that you've identified that deserve better public engagement. Stormwater infrastructure, absolute poverty, sustainability, water supply, staffing, community development, improving quality of life, sanitation, growth planning codes. These are important topics. They deserve better public engagement. And the beauty of this is once you've declared that, you can't undeclare it. You can't unknow it. You've identified it and you've seen it from your colleagues here. I'm going to move this forward a little bit, 5 more seconds before I do it. So if you're hitting something, do it real quick, and then I will move this forward. Ready? I'm looking. Okay. I'm going to offer point number 3. You want a quick tip on how to improve public engagement? Give your residents what they want. Give them what they want. It's funny because it's true, right? Yeah. Well, what do they want? Let's think about civic process as if it were a coffee filter. Let's think about all your residents who are coming to you and they want something done. They have something that they need to accomplish. Well, they bring to you, look, all their opinions, ideas, needs, their stresses, their beliefs, their ambitions, perspective, experience. You know what? My dad has a saying. Dad says that when he was younger, he thought that humanity was a loaf of raisin bread. He said, most people are the bread, but there's some occasional raisins. But as Dad got older, he changed his attitude. He says, you know what, humanity is just a box of raisins. I'm going to tell Dad that you didn't laugh really hard at this joke, just so you're aware. Give them what they want. They come with all this baggage. That's inevitable, and it's natural. It's necessary. Humans disagree. We have different perspectives. That's not a problem. That's welcome. We want that. They pour it into the civic process, and the question I'm asking you is, what do they want? I don't have to tell you the answer to this. You know the answer to this. And you're going to tell me, because I'm going to ask you once again, take out your cell phone, and this time a one-word answer, please. A one-word answer. How should people feel about their civic engagement? Before I ask you how they actually feel at the end, now I'm asking you, how should they feel? How should people feel about their civic engagement? Give me a one word, and if you want to do more than one word, if you want to do 2 words or 3 words, or if you want to vote for the same word 3 times, by all means, go for it. Look at the words that you're putting down. People should feel, that's what you're saying, people should feel heard and satisfied and engaged and empowered and encouraged. And they should feel appreciated. And they should feel relevant and relieved and eager and comfortable and happy and listened to. But look at the number 1 word that's showing up. Heard. And by the way, just so you know, 2 days ago, I shared this exact presentation with all of your colleagues in the great state of North Dakota. I was in Bismarck, North Dakota for the opening of the North Dakota League of Cities conference 2 days ago. Heard was the number 1 reason, the number 1 answer that came on their slide as well. People want to be heard. But people understand that if they're heard, they may not get their way. I think we learned that you don't always get your way somewhere around kindergarten or so, maybe even earlier. People understand that. They'll understand that they'll make a different decision, but what's sacred is they have to come away from the process feeling heard. And that's your answer. I didn't tell you that. That's what you told me. I'll give you 10 more seconds, because we have 200 responses on this already. But I'll give you just 10 more seconds. If anyone else wants to add anything else here, I'm going to move on. Oh, I love some of the words here. How should people feel? They should feel energized. They should feel responsibility. They should feel fairly treated. Satisfied. Proud. I love seeing proud here. Heard, empowered, encouraged, understood, engaged, involved, credible, happy, represented. These are beautiful words. All right, let me move this forward. I can move this forward because this is the picture of how people are feeling. All too often, they're feeling angry. And I have to ask the question, does disagreement have to be disagreeable? The answer is sometimes it does. The right to protest is a sacred right in this country. And we owe people that. There are people who have been left out of the process, who have anger, and they have frustration, and sometimes the only way they're going to be heard is through an act of protest. I respect that. I'm not saying that we're ever going to get away from that completely. My point is that this is not about recognizing and solving community problems, or Blake, right? It's not to Blake's perspective. These pictures are not about recognizing and solving community opportunities. And so our hero from the Norman Rockwell painting, he doesn't belong here. This is not where the brave individual who has something to say and who wants to make a point, this is not the way to do it. This does not honor the process that we set out for. I promised I wasn't going to talk about any political candidate or office holder, so I will not name this person, but I will just brag for just a moment. I come to you from Scottsdale, Arizona. My wife and I have lived there for 33 years. We had a mayor of our city. He was our mayor for 16 years. He retired and passed away about a year afterwards. And my business partner served as his chief of staff, so I'm frequently aware of the legacy that that mayor left in our community. And one of the things that we repeat often was that mayor's statement where he said, "No one should ever leave City Hall feeling defeated. There is always something that can be done to help." I love the philosophy of this. Our job is to make people feel helped and empowered, and that we demonstrated the caring that they were expecting to get for their engagement with us. So here comes number 4. And number 4, I'm going to give you 6. Number 4 is, I think, the most important one. I should have stated it to 6, but it made more sense to do it here. Because I want to ask you just to engage with me for a moment in just a little self-assessment of your own community and the way it operates. Because I want to talk about hosting courageous conversations, but I want you to think about the way your community process is structured. Because these are the things that local government does really well. Local government does a great job of informing people. We send out announcements and press releases and whatever notices we have to do. We do a fantastic job of educating people. We put out reports and videos and websites. We respond to Freedom of Information Act requests. We are good at delivering information. We are really good at reviewing information that comes to us in study sessions, subcommittees, and hearings. We hire consultants to give us reports, and we invite public comments. And the public can come down, and you can have, what is it in your community, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? 3? Yeah, they come in for 3 minutes. They can state their mind, but the agenda typically doesn't allow the council member or whoever to respond. There can't be a conversation. You get your 3 minutes and you skedaddle, and sometimes the people on the dais aren't even listening. They're not paying eye contact. It's hard. It's not a terribly satisfying process, but we are good at reviewing. We are good at deciding in council meetings. You've got to make decisions in council meetings and commission meetings all the time. And then finally, we are really good at sustaining this. We have annual reports and surveys and evaluations, and we justify, oh, people love living in our community, love the quality of service, that's just wonderful. The question that I'm asking you is, where is the place where they get to explore possibilities? Where do the residents of your community get the chance to engage with other people? And say, well, how do you see that? And how do I see it? And where do we have opportunities here? What can we do with this? And I'm just going to show you just a few pictures from a number of conversations that that I conducted in another community. Because when you bring residents together, it's not about how you help the city make the decision. I want to be really clear here. It is about how you bring people together so they can talk and learn and hear what other people have to say, without the expectation that you're making a decision at the end of it. All of these pictures come from 90-minute meetings. 90-minute meetings where there was generally 1 or 2 questions on the table, nothing more than that. If you want to know what those questions are and how we did it, come to tomorrow morning's session. I'm glad to take you through the mechanics of how to do this kind of a meeting. But the point is, when residents come together, there were no council members. There was no there was city staff who were helping organize it, but they were not there as resource people. This was cleanly only about bringing residents together, for them to talk together about whatever is the issue that's on the table. A chance for them to put options and opportunities. Put up the flip chart, put up the sticky notes, give them the colored dots, and let them prioritize among themselves, among the options and possibilities that come out there. Because this is how they come away from your civic process feeling engaged and heard, and other people listen to them. A chance to exercise their own leadership. What you're hoping for, what we're all hoping for, is that someone emerges from one of those meetings, and you know what? They say to someone else who they just met, you know what, could we grab coffee? I'd love to talk about this more. I wonder if the 2 of us could figure out a way to bring resources to this, or explore another way to solve this problem, or another way to involve more people in the process. You see, the process of civic government, because you have laws and ordinances and all kinds of regulations about what has to be done, especially in planning and things like this, it's all regimented. I get that. I'm not trying to say any of that has to change. I'm saying there's an additional layer here. And that additional layer is the opportunity to invite people in for courageous conversations where they understand they're there to think big and they're there to think collaboratively. And people are willing to do that. This is where our hero from the Norman Rockwell painting seems to live. This is the place where someone who has a perspective shows up with the bravery to say, here's an idea. And other people will go, that's a good idea. Or will go, I don't love that idea. But it's okay, this person will feel heard and respected as a result. And if you want to ask me the question, and again, President Ken in my introduction was kind enough to mention the podcast, for myself, I needed a way to demonstrate that this was really possible. And earlier this summer, I launched this weekly podcast called Tell Me More. And every week, I invite people who disagree about all kinds of political topics and social issues to sit down for a 1-hour conversation. The promise that I make to the people who I'm inviting is, I am not the Jerry Springer Show. I'm not interested in any sparks or anything like that. I am purely about people who disagree asking each other questions like, how do you believe that? Where did that come from? What do you think would happen if my side won? And do we have any middle ground between this? Is there any opportunity for us to talk about that? And you'll be surprised. We've posted 11 episodes so far, and I think we posted 10. The 11th will come next Thursday. And it is amazing what we've been able to discover on some of the most contentious issues that our nation is facing these days. Anyway, I encourage you to check it out. Oh, and I'll also mention, if you're interested in being a guest, I'm always looking for people who are opinionated who would like to talk. So hand me your business card and tell me that you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, and I'll connect you with the way to do that as well. All right, here comes number 5. Number 5 is that civic engagement must not be a win-lose proposition. It's not a tug-of-war. I'm going to prove that to you with a silly little exercise that I hope you will treat as seriously as I offer it, because it's a silly little exercise. We start with this resolution to the Tennessee Municipal League that Tom Hanks is America's best actor. And having said that, your choice right now, using your cell phone, is to text in whether you agree or disagree, and you're going to do that simply by texting in the letter A for agree, or come on, there we go. The letter A for agree or B for disagree. Tom Hanks is America's best actor. Please don't ask me to define it any further than that, Blake. Tom Hanks is America's best actor. Go. So give me an agree or disagree. Oh, it's not showing up. Why is that? Hang on. Let's see if it. There we go. No, it's not up. It should be coming up. Hang on. Let's try that. So I don't know why that's not going, and I'm not going to spend time. Let's just do a quick show of hands since the texting isn't working for me. All of those who agree that Tom Hanks is America's best actor, raise your hand. Oh, a lot of you. And how many of you disagree? Would you say the disagrees have it? Okay. I will tell you, when I did this in North Dakota, it was 2/3 disagree, 1/3 agree. And I think you're more like 3/4 or more disagree. So, Tom Hanks, I'm sorry, but this is not your state. We're done, right? That's it. I'm going to offer you a different way of looking at this very question. This is a skill that you can take. Because I said, stop offering your public binary choices. I know if you're in leadership, you have to make binary choices all the time. Council has to vote on things, you got to vote on budgets, this is for the public. Stop offering them binary choices. Instead, I'm going to ask you the same question, but instead of asking you, do you agree or disagree, I'm going to ask you, if you are 90% okay with the idea that Tom Hanks is America's best actor, you're going to give it a green light. You only have to be 90%. That probably means that you could, maybe Tom Hanks is in your top, I don't know, he's in your top 10. Okay? If he's in your top 10, give him a green light. If you're only 80% are good, so maybe he's like in the top, I don't know, 50 people that you might consider in the running, give him a yellow light. And if he is if you are morally opposed to the idea of Tom Hanks being considered as America's best actor, you're going to give it a red light. I will tell you, in the real world, if we were doing this, anyone who casts a red light, I would say you have to give another suggestion. And then we would go around and we would red light, yellow light, green light on that to see where we can find the soft spot here. Hopefully my technology will work, because now I'm going to ask you to vote A, B, or C on whether Tom Hanks is America's best actor. A for green, B for yellow, C for red. Oh, good, it's working. Tell me where you stand on Tom Hanks is America's best actor. Wow. You have some pretty strong opinions about Tom Hanks, I tell you. More than 100 people have responded. You are at 37% are green, 46% at yellow, 19% are morally opposed to Tom Hanks being named America's best. I didn't say Tennessee's best actor. You could have someone else for that, but America's best actor? Really? Okay. Look, 130 of you have responded, and here's the point I want to make. For public engagement, we don't need a majority vote to make the decision. This is not council. We need a collaborative decision. We need a softening of people's position. Instead of asking people if you agree or disagree, ask them, are you 90% okay with this? Because if you can give this a green light, we're good to go. And you know what? If you're 80% or better, we'll give you a yellow light. And a yellow light also means that we're good to go. In fact, if everyone was red and yellow, we would say that was a consensus decision. Not everyone has to love it. Doesn't have to be everyone's first choice, but we found a soft spot here. But look at your response. 71% of you are actually okay with Tom Hanks being named America's Best Actor. Previously, we said 3/4 of you raised your... Oh. Did I speak too soon? Who keeps voting? Someone's gaming the system here, I think. Have I made the point? If you can offer people a way to offer a softer position, you can find, I'll use the word loosely, but you can find consensus. You can find general agreement. And just now to prove the point, since 29% of you are now morally opposed to Tom Hanks, I am going 30%, it's going to keep going. Just shout out, I'm going to start on this side of the room and work my way over. Just shout out really loud. If we were doing it, we're not going to do it. I want to know what actor you would propose to everyone else would be America's best actor. Start over here, just yell it out.
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey?
Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington?
John Wayne.
Who's that?
John Wayne.
Don Lane?
John Wayne.
Oh, John Wayne. John Wayne. Don Lane. John Wayne. Good. Anyone else over here? How about over here? Clint Eastwood.
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart. Who? Okay. Who else? Okay, you're all wrong.
Dolly Parton.
No one said Dolly Parton. No one said William Shatner. Sorry, that would have been my vote. You see, my point is there's plenty of room for conversation here if we're willing to soften up. And using a green, yellow, red light is a beautiful skill to be able to do that in your community. I'm going to move this forward. Here's number 6. I really wish that Fred Rogers was still alive today. If Mr. Rogers was alive today, he would tell us that it's important that we acknowledge the uneasiness that we feel. Not just that we feel, but that members of our community feel. And his whole quote, I didn't put the whole quote up there, but the whole quote is, if it's human, it's mentionable. And if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And so I leave you with a tip that suggests that even though I'm not talking about any political issue, I'm not talking about any issue, but I am going to talk about the emotions around issues. And on an issue, we understand Mr. Rogers would remind us that there are at least 6 emotions that people feel. They feel anger and sadness and fear. And sometimes people are even feeling joy. Maybe you can't see it behind the mask, but you can see their eyes crinkling a little bit. There's happiness going on under there. They may feel surprise. They may feel disgust. This is human. We need to be able to deal with this. And we as leaders, and for the teams that we manage and that we work with, we need to get skilled in the basis of emotional, what I call emotional intentionality. Emotional intentionality means that we have to understand how to respond to people who have all these emotions. And again, this is not rocket science here. If Mr. Rogers were here, he would remind us that where people are angry, we have to remain calm. We don't want to fuel their anger. Where people are sad, to be human is to comfort them. Where people are fearful, we have to demonstrate that we care. Where people are having joy, we have to pay attention to it. We can't harsh their joy. Where people are surprised, we need to be patient. Let them work through their surprise and figure out where they are and where they're coming down. And where people are disgusted because they feel that they have been disrespected or unheard, we need to respect that. We need to listen to that. We need to understand it, to listen to their stories, and we need to channel it into something that's productive and useful. There's no rocket science here. It's simple emotional intentionality. Look, as we wrap up here, I'm going to just make a couple of final comments. The future is unknowable, but it's incredibly malleable. That's my quote. You see it says over there, Matt? I could quote someone else, but it just feels so official to put my own quote up here. It's one of my favorite quotes. I leave you this quote because I believe wholeheartedly that when you leave here today, when you leave this conference, when you leave all of us and the privilege of being together once again, that even the small changes you make in your community, even the small changes you make in your behaviors can have a massive impact on the quality of public engagement in your communities. Because it will leave people feeling certain ways. And you've answered the question already. You've already answered what specific issues need to be addressed in your communities. You've put them out here, and I will send them all to you after this if you would like to receive them. And you've also said how people should feel as a result of their civic engagement. And you said they need to feel heard and proud and respected and satisfied and empowered. And I applaud you for giving an incredible speech here today, because those are your words that you've put up here. All I've offered are 6 tips. Call it systemized common sense. But one of the things that we know is that coming out of a period of stress, it's not bad to be reminded that there are certain things that we know how to do, we know we need to do. But take this as a reminder that this is your opportunity to make this happen in your community. If you want to start a courageous conversation, there's one really valuable question you can ask. It's this one. Take this question to every nonprofit organization, service organization, Rotary. Take this to church groups and synagogue groups and to mosques. Take this to every entity in your community. Ask this question. How might we join together to contribute to the recovery and health and collaborative spirit of our community? How might we, the people of our community, join together? Problem, opportunity. It's all about the recovery, health, and collaborative spirit of our community. This is the most powerful question you can possibly ask. We will, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we will operationalize this. We're going to talk about the questions that you have and how we can actually make this practical in your community. I hope you'll join us. And then, as I promised, here's a simple way to get a copy of all my slides, a 2-page write-up, some other stuff. This is a different text number, so just send this to, you're sending the word Lehrman, that's my last name, to the number 66866. This is all automated. So when you send Lehrman to 66866, you'll get a bounce back message that asks for your email address. Just put your email address in that response, and then immediately it will go in and an email will arrive to you in a matter of seconds, hopefully seconds, no more than a minute, and it will have links to all this information. I'll leave this up here for the end of the presentation. The most important thing is that the future is unknown, but it's incredibly malleable. I thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you today. It is good to see you. It is good for all of us to be seen together. And I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity to share this with you. Thank you very much.